Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. Great to have you here today on our Total Wellness Tuesday, episode 1978 of the Cabral Concept. All links today will be at stephencabral.com/1978. That's where the show notes will be, the links, any research, and of course, the top 3 takeaways that we put every single day on the podcast show notes pages. So today's show is going to all be about the 5 physical major and minor signs of nutrient deficiencies. So one of the great things about our body, our physical body, is that whatever's going on in the inside will begin to manifest on the outside. Now you might say, well, that doesn't sound so great. And I agree with you. I agree with you from a symptom standpoint. However, the symptoms allow you to understand, allow you to actually see that something is going on inside of this body. They're considered early warning signs. So when you start to see the early warning signs, you can say, okay, I need to do something, and we'll give you everything that you need to do here today. We'll talk about those things. You need to do something in order to make sure that you do not completely fill up that rain barrel. The rain barrel then begins to overflow and you get diagnosed with some type of clinical-based disease, then put on some type of medication to mask those specific symptoms that you then take for the rest of your life as those deficiencies continue to fester, build up along with the toxicities. I mean, that is the sick care system that we're currently using right now, which is why I also want to make sure that if you're dealing with any of these physical signs that we talk about today, don't just use a pharmaceutical to mask them, all right? If you're on a pharmaceutical drug, of course, I'm not telling you to come off of it. What I'm telling you to do is always find the underlying root cause. There's always an underlying root cause. Today, we're talking about deficiencies. The other half of the equation is toxicities. And of course, you can find out more about those at stephencabral.com/podcast for all of our previous shows. Let's dive right into it now. We have the 5 minor signs coming up first. Now, major, minor, what am I really talking about? Well, the minor signs are, okay, we're beginning to see the first signs of nutrient deficiencies, okay? Now, there are many more than 5. I want to go through 5 of the most common that I see in my practice, but you might be experiencing some of your own. Maybe I'll add a couple more as well. Okay, the 5 minor ones before we get to the major, where it's like about to cause serious issues. We'll get to those in just a couple minutes. So the first sign is this: it's graying hair. Now, you might say to yourself, graying hair, well, that's natural. That's part of the aging process. And I would say to you, I agree with that. Every human that I know of, at least, their hair eventually turns gray as they begin to age. What I'm talking about is premature graying of your hair, okay? So premature graying of your hair would really be considered in your teenage years. Believe it or not, people in their teenage years, their later teenage years, can begin to start to get some grays. Definitely your 20s along with that as well. And I would say no earlier than early to mid 30s, meaning that your hair should not have a significant amount of grays until your later 30s. And at that point, you might see a gradual graying of the hair. If all of a sudden your hair really starts to gray very, very quickly, like over weeks and months, there's a sign of a larger nutrient deficiency. So what are these nutrient deficiencies that I'm talking about? I'm talking about either vitamins or minerals or electrolytes, specifically with certain minerals. I'm talking about omega-3s, omega-6s, omega-9s. I'm talking about amino acids from proteins. So anything that your body needs on a daily basis. Now, again, I have podcasts on all of these. I have podcasts on why the hair grays. I have podcasts on why the hair falls out. I'll try to link up some of those today at stephencabral.com/1978. But remember, you can always go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, type in any keyword you want, like graying hair or hair gray or hair loss. And you'll see podcasts on hair loss overall of why it happens. There's about half a dozen different reasons. And then I have a podcast just for women's hair loss, which is different from men's male pattern balding as well. All right, so that's gray in here. Again, you will go gray. I have not seen anybody not go gray over their lifetime, but it should happen later. Why would it happen? I'm just going to give you a couple, and again, you can listen to specific show on that. What would be a deficiency there? Copper, vitamin C, zinc. Those are some big ones, really big ones for grain of the hair. Again, there are others, but those are ones we want to look at. All right, what about thinning skin? Again, I have a whole podcast just on the thinning skin and elasticity. But thinning skin, really before the age of, we'll say 40, mid-40s, it's an issue. And the reason is you're becoming more catabolic. So you're lacking, again, vitamin C, zinc, some selenium potentially, proteins, collagen. What about lower energy? That's number 3. Lower energy, in my opinion, should not happen at any point in life. Will you slow down a bit as you get older? Yes, you will. You'll have less mitochondria. The body will not be as strong. ATP production won't be there as it was when you were younger. But really, like, energy decreasing, especially if it's happened over the last couple of weeks or months, is a sign of nutrient deficiencies. It can be a sign of a great stressor in your body too. There's no doubt about that. But a lot of people, and I talked about this in post-COVID recovery. If you want to check out my podcast on that, a lot of people are dealing with mitochondrial issues from taking all sorts of different things for it. And also, a virus really wipes out a lot of your supplies of things like glutamine, things like zinc, things like vitamin C, your B vitamins. Extremely important, right? Can lead to lower energy. I'll give you a at-home lab test to check in just a moment. Slower recovery from injury. This is a big one, all right? Slower recovery. Now, injury could be, let's say, a hard workout, right? You damage the muscle tissue with a resistance workout. That's not a bad thing. But when it takes you 4 or 5 days to recover, that's a problem. I mean, it's really a problem to take 3 days to recover. 1 day, not so bad. 2 days, getting there. 3 days, that's a long time to recover from a workout. Unless you purposely overdid it, you just hadn't been to the gym in a while, and all of a sudden you're doing, 18 sets. That's a different story. But, in general, if you're slow to recover from cuts or wounds or injuries, it can be a sign of imbalanced inflammation inside of the body. That can do with so many different factors: magnesium, calcium, your B vitamins. It can have to do with vitamin C again. It can have to do with imbalance of omega-3s and omega-6s, lots of reasons. And the fifth minor one is that you catch colds easily. Now, if you have young kids, they're going to school, they're bringing home all sorts of different germs, it's not uncommon to catch some colds. It's not. 2-3 a year, that's not unhealthy. It's not uncommon. That's normal. You start getting 5 or 6 a year, then that's an issue. That's definitely a sign of a potentially weakened immune system. These are things that you want to watch for. Now, before I move on to the major ones, there are simple at-home labs that you can run. Now, there's ones for hormones, there's ones for omegas, there's ones for everything. I mean, I highly recommend, of course, the Big 5 labs. The Big 5 labs will test everything from gut function to omega-3s to hormones, your cortisol levels, your vitamin D, your vitamins, your minerals, literally everything. It's an amazing, they're Big 5 labs. 5 labs you can do right at home for you, for your kids, for your family. But if you just wanted to look at your nutrient deficiencies in terms of vitamins and minerals, at the same time looking at heavy metals in your gut function, I would run the starter kit. And the starter kit you can find at Equa.life. So Equa.life is the name of the company of my online practice. And we open source all of these labs basically to 30 countries around the world. Very proud of my team for being able to open source that all around the world, because it used to just be a Boston-based practice and now it's a global practice. But you can literally test your vitamin and mineral levels along with gut function, along with heavy metals in something called the starter kit. And that's 2 easy at-home lab tests: small urine sample and a hair sample as well. That will do it. It really will. And again, it can be done for children and adults. All right. That's, again, we can link that up. So we'll link that up today at stephencabral.com/1978. But you can also just go to equi.life/labs and just click on starter kit. Okay. The 5 major physical signs, symptoms of a nutrient deficiency. So we talked a little bit about just basically the body not being able to rebound as quickly, have as much energy, feel as strong as it should. But when things start to get worse, when it starts to become more chronic, so that's the difference between minor and major. Major is chronic. It's been going on a while now. This isn't just an overnight thing. You start to feel lower libido. Now, I'll tell you right now, that is not a normal sign, really, at any point in life before maybe your 60s. Maybe your 60s. Because your hormone levels, your neurotransmitter levels, people think that it's all just about hormones for libido. It's not. It has to do with dopamine. It has to do with norepinephrine. They matter as well. Cortisol levels matter. I mean, you're not going to have a strong libido if you're lower in testosterone, if you're lower in cortisol, if you're lower in dopamine, if you're lower in norepinephrine, like all of these things matter. But the precursors to those are things like vitamin B5 and many other nutrients that allow the body to function as they should. A lot of people don't know that in order for cholesterol to form testosterone or even cortisol or DHEA, that it actually needs vitamin B5 to create something called acetyl coenzyme A. So these are important nutrients that are often overlooked, definitely overlooked in conventional medicine. They never mention them, but that's simply because they're not studied in medical school. If they were, they would be mentioned. But again, we're looking at this from a root causal issue. All right, so low libido is another. The next one is brain. So the reason why that's important is to note that nature has built in to have someone have a lower libido if their body is not fit to really carry on new life. Because think about how much work it takes for, especially a woman, to be able to create that life, but also a man to be able to do his role and his part as well. So it's really important to look at that. Your nature knows, like, it's not the best time for you to conceive if your body is not where it should be. And it will decrease libido. We see that with low thyroid. We see that cortisol stress, etc. All right, the next one is brain fog and grogginess. This goes beyond just waking up that you feel like you're, a little tired when you get out of bed. No, this is brain fog for an hour or two or until you have your caffeine. Something is not right. There is a lowered metabolic rate. It may have to do with your cortisol awakening response. It might have to do with hypoglycemia, lower blood sugar levels. It might have to do with lower thyroid levels. It might have to do with inflammation. There's something going on inside of your body creating mass inflammation, which is most likely leading to deficiencies or caused by deficiencies. This could be a spectrum of vitamin C, B vitamins. It could have to do with levels of zinc. There's a lot that goes into this. If it's the thyroid, it might have to do specifically with iodine or selenium. So you have to understand is, again, all of this has been, you're able to figure this out, but these are signs of real deficiencies in the body. The next one is this: cracks around the corners of the mouth, or I would even say adult acne. You could look at it this way. Now, adult acne, I don't want to put in as much. That can be bacterial-based. You might have intestinal permeability, digestive issues, food sensitivities. So that can be different. So let's focus on more. You start to see the little wrinkles around your lips, right? The little lines above the top lip, or you start to see cracks right around the sides of your lips. I have a whole podcast on what your lips, say about your health. So you can definitely tune into that one. I'll try to link that up today as well. But serious, and it's typical, B vitamin deficiencies and or candida overgrowth when you start to get the redness and the cracks around the side of those lips. So something to look into. Really, really important. I put in this as just kind of a bonus one, which I'm gonna get to in just one moment. But sudden hair falling out. If your hair is falling out, and we're not talking about male pattern balding, right? We're not talking about a thinning of the hair on the top of the head. If you see your hair falling out more like clumps or at a larger amount, that very well may be from usually mass chronic stress. It could happen all at once. Catabolism, so typically higher levels of cortisol, sometimes seen in Cushing's disease, but also, again, looking at B vitamins and a lot of your trace minerals as well. Really important. So I just wanted to add that one in there. And then the last one is this. Difficulty recovering from colds. So we talked about getting frequent colds. Now, frequent colds, again, it just means that you might be exposed to a new virus that your body hadn't seen before. And so what happens is your body, you look at it as a cold, right? But it's actually your body's response to a cold. right? That's not the cold itself. We always kind of think that the sneezing, the sniffling, the coughing is the cold. It's not. That's our body's attempt to rid it from the body. And again, I'm not going to go too deep on that here today, but a fever is not from the cold. A fever is your body spiking temperature in order to destroy viruses, in order to move those white blood cells around the body a whole lot faster. So it's interesting when we look at it that way, our body's actually part of the healing process. So do we want to squelch all of the coughing and sneezing and fever? No, we don't, unless it starts to get life-threatening. And then, of course, we do. So, but think about it this way. The colds, I'm not as concerned about. If you recover within 3 to 5 days, honestly, no big deal. Really no big deal. Because your body's going to be stronger for it, right? Okay, it saw that virus, saw that bacteria. It's good, right? It's now built up antibodies to that. However, if it takes you 7 days, 10 days, 2 weeks to recover from these colds, it's an issue. And it absolutely means there's a sign of an imbalanced immune system. And when we look at a balanced immune system, we're definitely looking at inflammatory causes from the gut or from heavy metals or from imbalanced hormonal levels. No doubt about that. I agree with it. However, a lot of those things occur because upstream, when we look at nutrient deficiencies such as vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, it causes much more serious issues downline with the immune system. So those are my 5 minor and 5 major ones today that I see inside of my practice. I could go on and on about poor circulation, cold hands and feet, minor headaches, eye pain. However, I'm going to give you those 5 today in both categories, and I'm sure we'll do a part 2 follow-up in just a couple months, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. All of the follow-up shows that I mentioned today will be at stephencabral.com/1978. And of course, if this show is helpful, please do feel free to pass it along to anybody else you believe it could serve. Really appreciate you tuning into the show today. And as a valued listener, I want to make sure that you know over at Equilife, we are giving away 500 bottles this week of our gluten and dairy support. This is one of our most popular enzymes, especially this time of the year, where you might be eating a little bit extra gluten or a little bit of dairy on those flex meals or cheat meals. And you want an enzyme that's going to help you break down those foods to a greater degree so that you get less or none of the bloating, gas, or distension that might come along with eating those foods. Plus, this is the perfect enzyme to help you digest beans and other plant-based proteins, since there's an extra enzyme in there called xylanase. This is the product you are looking for outdoor barbecues, fun with friends, or maybe some outdoor cheats. Or, again, if you've been sneaking a little bit more gluten and dairy into your diet. It's the perfect enzyme to pair with the daily digestive enzyme and can add that much more support when you're eating beans, plant-based proteins, dairy, or gluten. Take advantage of this complimentary offer, your free bottle while supplies last, over at equa.life with qualifying orders. Head on over to equi.life for your free bottle of gluten and dairy support.